A sad supernatural clown, a genie who can't get out of his own way, a robot butler who tucks himself away every night to recharge, and the Grim Reaper walk into a bar. That was never a joke we told, but we did enjoy making the stuff pack that extended the original Sims game into something more complete that could be replicated another 3 times over the next 20 years. That was called Livin Large, and that was a lot of fun to make. Please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I am going to keep making these as long as folks want to see them, and will fill in as best I can as time goes on and time allows. Thank you for your support. On with the show. Hello, my darlings. This is about the Sims Livin Large. We had a lot of fun and a lot of ideas about objects and concepts that didn't make it into the original game, as well as other things that we worked out that we wanted to play with. We hadn't gotten enough kitsch and enough crazy stuff into the original game, so it was just a matter of organizing and building stuff. I had had the joy of working with Don Hopkins, Patrick Barrett, and, well, Jamie and Eric as well. But while I was the main animator generalist, I was building a lot of placeholder objects and then animating around them, trying to work out what the designers had in mind, but also trying to extend the vocabulary of the Sims, as well as the ability for us to do all the smoke and mirrors and make things in that Z-buffered 2D world with 3D characters, just to push it as far as we could. If you play games now, you know right now that a lot of game engines people play with start almost photorealistic, and all the grids on the ground and bits and pieces are all there for people to just hook up. We were kind of doing everything on the fly, using libraries and formulae that were being borrowed and then recreated and created for the first time. So when I made a 2 square, it's like a 2 unit object like the original large barbecue in the previous release, it required us to have the Sim walk side to side while they were getting stuff out of the refrigerator and preparing it on top where the cutting board was, and then moving over to the grill and cooking it. Previously, the Sims would just cook on the 1 square meter grill, or game meter grill. And likewise, they get in and out of beds energetically and sleep. Well, we were adding things like my love bed, which I really, really liked making because I remembered going on road trips and being in decrepit old hotels where you could put quarters into the little box on the side of the bed and it would shake the whole thing, calling it magic fingers, when really it was just a little vibrational motor that would shake the whole thing. That was a real big fitness and wellness trend of the 50s and 60s. As I said before, we were trying to build the kitsch and build the idea of how to make something appealing and kooky, and so I had already worked out how to get in and out of the bed, a single bed, how to sleep in it, how to make it so that the 2D covers and the 2D pillows would shift around as you engage them with the animation. And then came the love bed, where you could have two people enter it and then have them squeeze down into almost nothing, and then have the sprites do a little dance that was accompanied by dogs and cats chasing each other around in a cartoony soundscape fashion. And then that friskiness, depending on the way things were going in the game and your relationship with the other person, could produce a child, which was a lot of fun for them and a lot of fun for the players. So the love bed generally, stylistically, was something that we wanted to have as crazy, as nostalgic as possible. So the concept was a honeymoon lodge or a honeymoon penthouse suite at Niagara Falls or in Las Vegas from a bygone era, and making it quilted satin and brass accents with lace around it just seemed the perfect thing to do. There were many other things we did during that expansion pack, like the topiaries for the garden, where I believe I'd done a llama, because it's Will Wright and llamas. The Empire State Building, a dolphin jumping out of the surf. Then, tall pyramid, egg on a stick, the usual things you'd see in topiary gardens of the rich and famous. Now, we hadn't had sickness in the original game, so we included what we called hamster, which later was called a guinea pig, but it was a hamster. It was the not space hamster, just a hamster, but it had its wheel. We had little tiny sprites, etc., for it to move around in there, to be your little pet. Then if you were unlucky, it would bite you and you'd either get sick or you'd get very sick and die. So it was a lot of fun, because that was another thing that we used with accessories. So within Livin Large, you can get abducted by aliens, and these balls with trails spin around you, which are just 3 balls in different positions that cycle. So they go like this, but then there's one in the next place and they join together, so they look like they're spinning around the abducted person as they're being lifted into the sky. That's all being fired off by note tracks that get exported when you export each one of the animations from 3D Studio Max. Likewise, when you have a hamster in your hand, or you are the tragic clown, and you have your dove is not flapping its wings because it has wings with little hinges in them. It's because we're switching out a dove with its wings down, up, down, up, down, up, and then falling with its nose down until it hits the ground flat. So we have this one, we have the dove still in the hand, so that's 3. We have the throwing of the dove into the air, and the dove then gets attached, instead of being part of the hand, gets attached to the face. So as the dove starts flapping its wings, it's attached to the head, and all you have to do is raise the nose of the clown, and the dove seems to be rising into the air, and then as the head lowers, the dove starts flapping more furiously and then stops, and then takes a nosedive. And as they are falling, they became a child of first the face, but then the middle of the body, and then the hips, and then they are on the ground, attached to the foot, splatted on the ground, face pile driven into the ground with little wings sticking up. I can't remember if they're twitching or not, but that in itself is a little suite of I guess, upwards of 10 to a dozen objects of just the dove in different positions. Likewise, when the tragic clown pulls out his round black circle in order to jump into it to escape, he pulls out a small, what looks like a deflated balloon, and starts flipping it, and as he does, it gets large, and it looks like this black tongue. When it hits the ground, bam, it becomes a sprite, and all the tragic clown has to do is do his little dive, which really turns into a cannonball maneuver, and then we make him disappear. But accessory, 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 sprite. So that's kind of like the way we did stuff. I'm pulling these things out of my ears, trying to be expressive, because I'm silly. Anyway, it became more of an art form at that particular point because we wanted to make things a little bit more fun and fantastic. And so that a set of birds or the flappy thing or balls to juggle were simply little things that repeat as cheaply as possible, that convey the idea of the thing happening. It was more important that we emulate things in the world than we try to simulate them by putting a ball object in there and using physics or something, because these were computer games made for computers that could barely do 3D. So we're going to take advantage of that 3D component so that, no matter what angle you looked at it, it was still synced with the other 3D object. But there was no way we could have actually used a sprite object to do that properly. It would have just taken too much trouble. I mean, it's bad enough that we had fire that was just a spiral of a video of fire, but that was what we had, and that's what we did. So, other things of note, we have a robot butler, and the robot butler originally was based off of Rosie, the maid from the Jetsons, and things like the original flying mechanical monsters from Superman and Lupin, and what was the other one? Oh yes, the Castle in the Sky, La Puta, from Hayao Miyazaki, all inspired stuff like this, but generally that hingy jaw that you see on Servo, the robot butler / maid, was definitely something that, is fairly popular within that 1940s, 50s kitschy, this is a robot, because it has that sort of, it gets this big thick jaw underneath, and then it just looks goofy, it looks dopey. And any other licensed character that I don't want to pay the license for, so I'm just going to use those as adjectives. So, because the ceilings are a certain height, we had to make sure that the charging station for our little servo was below that 10 feet. So, made it a little bit lower, but then we thought it would be fun if it did have a little bit of headroom in there, or not headroom, but chunkiness, so we have lights on it and other things. And the servo himself would come out of what looked like a futuristic phone booth, but he'd be all folded up inside. So it's just a regular Sims skeleton, but so that the head is tucked down and in, and the arms are folded back in among themselves, and it's sort of just collapsed. So as he walks in and he walks out, there's that deployment animation. Most other animations could have been done by every other character, and a lot of them were. He was just taking over and doing things for you, making your life easier. He was also one of the first cross-dressing robots I knew about, because he came in sort of agendered. He definitely, I keep saying he, they, it, he, would put on the French maid outfit and wander around and do stuff, and that was very well put together, I think, by Eric Chin. Little animations to use an accessory feather duster. So it was a lot of fun to do, just because it added that much more personality to things. When you add the tragic clown and then you add the robot butler, it just becomes this milieu of craziness. Over and above the chaos, these things were less chaotic than when your sim starts making potions with the chemistry set and turns himself into a zombie or a Frankenstein and just goes around trashing things. That kind of craziness was definitely more of the chaos gremlin, Will Wright side of things, versus the Claire and Roxy make it make sense kind of side of things. Well, Claire, Roxy, Connor, Chris. And it definitely felt like there was that tug of war going on. Because we had things like the genie that was going to come out of the magic lamp when you rubbed it. So 2D sprite object, lamp, pick it up in your hand, it becomes a 3D object in the Sim's hand, you rub it. We had to make it reverse animate it so it looked like the thing was alive and getting ready to spit out stuff, and when it got to a certain point you would have the smoke come out, which was, I believe, started out as accessory but then became a sprite, and really gave us some conniption fits, the same way that when the Sims got in the fight that the big ball of dust would fall around, come around them. In this case, the genie comes up out of the smoke and then is floating there, and that was fun because we were just animating a Sim 5 feet into the air. We had to make it so that he was above the tables, but not by much, because otherwise he'd have his head through the ceiling. More fun parts of that were the fact that we made accessory lightning bolts for when you're being shot by him while the spell or the wish is being granted, spell is being cast. And then we decided we wanted just that much more quirkiness in it by having him starting to lose balance as if he were in a kayak and having to paddle his way through air back up to being fully upright. I mean, all these things were a lot of fun to do at the time, especially because when you're working in a non-union shop and you have people rolling through animators' cubicles, they're all looking to be entertained. They're looking to be inspired. And so it became really popular to go around and see the next thing and laugh at it, or have people kvetch and complain that it didn't look as interesting as the other stuff you were doing, when the fact is you can just get so much entertainment out of some person walking, or some person sitting, or some person sleeping. That's why we would have these really great failure states, or these really great get out of bed animations. I'll put up a still of that thing that I did. At this particular point in our development, we did more sketching. We were starting to get into a bit more of the pre-production work, which I love doing. I came to this job having been an art director at a different company, and much as is popular to say, it's really good to do a lot. Quantity is your friend when it comes to developing skills, because trying to go for quality means that if you miss out any individual little piece of what you're trying to work on, the whole thing can fall apart. So quantity is your friend when you're learning. So when I was an art director at 3DO, I had worked on a roller derby racing fighting game as or it was roller blades really, but kind of rollerblading meets what was then popular American Gladiators, pro wrestling, and roller derby, other stuff like that. And also worked on a monkey platformer. Also worked on a space opera strategy game. So had a lot of chance to be exposed to different concepts and how to pull them just out of the ether or out of the back of my brain. So when we were doing stuff like this, it was really good to be able to draw out the topiaries and have the art director you're working for, Charles, make a buy, or kick it up the stairs to someone with more juice who would make a decision for us. Then comes the Grim Reaper, because if you're going to have sickness, and you're going to have people dying from other things than drowning or suspicious fires, you definitely need more of a cleanup crew. And so we did make our own Grim Reaper, our own skeleton in a robe with a scythe. So yeah, made a scythe, had other people make it better, animated the guy with it, had to make begging animations so that people could beg to get their friends and lovers back, which would happen rarely. But then when it did, you would also have a chance to get people back without a personality because they got zombified, brought back from the dead, etc. Setting us up for all the whole tombstone thing and revivification and crazy non-player character animations meant that when we got to things like mascots in Sims Vacation, or we got into these actors in Sims Superstar, or trainers and salespeople in The Sims Unleashed, and even the little animals and stuff, but it made it so that we were moving toward a through line. We're moving toward a concept of how to get this stuff onto paper and then better get it made by our external developers who are coming on, New Pencil and Sausalito, with the Mergude brothers and Greg, who's now the king of Riot Art Direction. But it was a time of the expansion of skills, the expansion of minds, the building of new cool stuff. And really, it was filling in the blanks that the Sims PC original game was missing. Definitely it was cool that within months of Livin Large release, they built a deluxe version of the game that included those two pieces and had patches so that you were getting the original game and the first expansion and all the little things that might be needed to patch everyone's new PC that they were getting for Christmas, or the game as you were buying it off of a Walmart end cap when you still had CDs to load stuff onto a computer with a CD drive or a DVD drive later. So some crazy stuff, man. Some crazy nostalgic stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope you enjoy seeing the little pictures here and there. I am going to move on to Hot Date next. Or no, sorry, not Hot Date. House Party. Moving on to House Party next, which was interesting. Because after Livin Large, The Sims Online started becoming a thing, and so some of us kept being pulled back onto that and off of that and onto that and off of that. And some folks knew I already had the chops to sort of lead a group of animators, but also do art direction kind of stuff. So that's where I got shunted over to help define and make House Party a little bit more cohesive and individual, and use the tools that came out of things like the 3D photorealism toolkit. That was a book at the time. I'll find a copy of that and put it up. But, you know, before all the modern conveniences of ambient occlusion and normal maps, we had bumps. We had bump maps, and we used the heck out of them to make it look like everything was happening in a world of like air and light. More on that later. Thank you for going on this ride with me. I hope you had a good time. As usual, thank you. Like, subscribe, hit bells. I have a Patreon lying around somewhere. If I get 100 subscribers sometime soon, I'll start putting that link up too. Every little bit helps. Have a beautiful day.